The cough hit me like a freight train that Tuesday morning, rattling through my ribs like loose change in a washing machine. I leaned against the kitchen counter of my Portland condo, watching Mrs. Henderson's golden retriever dig up her petunias again, when the truth sucker punched me. This was how it would always be. Just me, my rattling lungs, and the quiet hum of the refrigerator. "Don't forget to smash that like button," I muttered to the empty room, because irony tastes better with a side of bitterness. At 62, I'd built a fortress of self-sufficiency, but this flu, it turned my walls to tissue paper. By sunset, the fever had me sweating through my sheets like a teenager after a breakup, and suddenly I was dialing my daughter Jessica's number with trembling fingers. "Honey, I think I've got that nasty virus going around," I said, immediately hating how my voice cracked like a vinyl record left in the sun. The silence on her end was so loud I could hear some Kardashian wailing on her TV. "Mom, I've got back-to-back investor meetings," she sighed, and I could practically see her manicured nails tapping against her phone case. "Just DoorDash some soup and take NyQuil. You'll survive." That night, I dragged myself to the bathroom like a wounded soldier, half hoping she'd text asking for my symptoms. Instead, I found a lukewarm Uber Eats bag on my porch. The next morning, sushi, which I'd hated since food poisoning in '09, with a note that said, "Get well XOXO." The raw fish stared at me like a bad punchline, and right then, something snapped. Not the dramatic wineglass throwing kind of snap. This was quieter, deeper, like a tree root finally breaking through concrete. For 3 days, I became my own nurse, my own cheerleader, my own company. And somewhere between choking down miso soup and watching my reflection in the black TV screen, I had an epiphany. I'd spent decades being everyone's backup generator. Jessica's emotional landfill after her dad's heart attack, her kid's last resort babysitter, the family's perpetual Plan B. Remembering how I'd canceled my anniversary trip to Sedona when her husband walked out. How I'd nodded through her rants about yoga retreats while my arthritis flared. The final straw came Thursday night when my phone buzzed, not with a check-in, but a group text about her promotion party. That's when I did something revolutionary. I turned off my phone, poured myself a bourbon, and danced barefoot to Fleetwood Mac in my empty living room. The floorboards creaked under my weight like they were applauding. By Friday, my fever had broken, but my resolve had hardened into something unshakable. I sat at the chipped formica table in that farmhouse kitchen, now my kitchen, watching dawn paint the oak trees gold through the window over the sink. The silence here had weight texture, not like the hollow quiet of my old condo where the absence of ringing phones and unopened text messages used to scream at me. Then came the first twist of fate, a knock at the door. Mrs. Delaney from down the dirt road stood there with a basket of eggs and a jar of honey, her overalls dusted with flour. "Heard someone moved into the old Henderson place," she said, squinting at me like I was a crossword puzzle she couldn't quite solve. "You look like you could use a pie." I almost laughed. In the city, my neighbors hadn't known my name in 15 years. Here they brought baked goods and eye contact. The second surprise arrived in the form of a rusty pickup truck the following Tuesday. A lanky teenager named Eli, "Grandma says you need help with the overgrown garden," showed up with work gloves and a quiet confidence that reminded me of anal. As we ripped out weeds, he casually mentioned the local community college's 50-plus entrepreneurship program. By noon, I'd signed up online using my phone dirt caked under my fingernails. I didn't just clean the farmhouse, I reclaimed it. When I tore down the yellowed lace curtains, I found original hardwood frames beneath. The ancient stove, a YouTube tutorial, and 3 burned casseroles. Later I could bake bread that made Mrs. Delaney nod in approval. Every splinter, every stubborn window became proof I wasn't just surviving, I was rebuilding. Then came the voicemail. Jessica's voice sharp with faux concern. "Mom, your realtor called about leasing the condo. What's going on?" I stared at the screen as her words dissolved into static. Outside, the wind chimes Annelle's mother had left on the porch sang in the breeze. For the first time in decades, I didn't rush to explain, apologize, or shrink myself to fit someone else's expectations. I hit delete. That night, I spread my course notes across the kitchen table, digital marketing diagrams, web design sketches, and grinned at the chaos. The farmhouse walls, once echoing with loneliness, now hummed with possibility. I opened the window and let the crickets' chorus drown out the past. Somewhere beyond the oak trees, a new life was taking root. And this time, I was the one holding the shovel. The morning mist still clung to the oak trees when the UPS truck rumbled up my driveway, an event so novel I nearly spilled my coffee. The package contained my first professional business cards, crisp and heavy in my hands. Maggie Whitmore, Digital Strategy Consultant. I traced the embossed letters with my thumb, a physical testament to the life I was building. Then came the first unexpected detour. Eli arrived that afternoon with his grandmother's ancient pickup towing a rusted but functional riding mower. "Figured you'd need this for the back acreage," he said, wiping grease off his hands. As I fumbled with the owner's manual, he casually mentioned the local farmers market. "My buddy runs their social media. It's a disaster." By sundown, I'd drafted a proposal on my laptop, the scent of freshly cut grass drifting through the open window. The second surprise arrived with the rain. A water stain bloomed on the farmhouse ceiling that evening, right above my makeshift office. I stood on a wobbly kitchen chair, poking at the damp plaster when the realization hit. I wasn't panicked, not even when a chunk of ceiling gave way, scattering dust across my keyboard. 30 years ago, I'd called anal in tears over a leaky faucet. Now I Googled how to patch a roof while humming along to the radio. Jessica's voice on the phone still echoed in my bones. "You'll be miserable out there," but the evidence argued otherwise. My consulting calendar filled with appointments. Mrs. Delaney brought over her church newsletter, asking if I could fancy it up. Even the deer had started lingering near the porch at dawn, as if curious about the woman who'd stopped apologizing for existing. Then came the email that changed everything. A tech startup in Austin found my website impressed by my case studies. "Your approach to grassroots marketing aligns with our values," wrote the CEO. They offered triple my current rate for a 3-month contract. I read it 3 times, then walked outside barefoot, letting the cool earth ground me. In the distance, Eli waved from his tractor. That night, I lay awake listening to the farmhouse settle around me, the groan of old timber, the scuttle of some harmless creature in the walls. Jessica's words had been a dare, masquerading as concern. But here's what she didn't understand. Misery wasn't a place. It was the gap between who you were and who you refused to become. I hit reply on the Austin offer at 4:17 a.m., the screen's blue light mingling with the first hints of sunrise. Somewhere beyond the oak trees, a new version of myself was taking shape, one unafraid of leaks, unimpressed by guilt trips, and utterly done with playing backup in other people's lives. The ceiling could wait. Adventure couldn't. The first frost came early that year, dusting the oak trees with silver as I sipped my coffee on the porch. Millie's threat of a visit should have unsettled me, but instead I found myself rearranging the guest room with something resembling anticipation. Not because I missed her, but because for the first time I held all the power in this dance we'd done for decades. Then came the twist I hadn't seen coming. A battered Ford pickup rattled up the driveway the day before Millie's flight, but it wasn't my sister. Eli's father, a broad-shouldered man with the same quiet eyes as his son, stepped out holding a toolbox. "Heard you've got a pipe leaking under the kitchen sink," he said by way of greeting. As he worked, he told me about the community center's upcoming fundraiser, how their marketing consisted of a faded poster at the post office. By the time he'd fixed the leak, I'd drafted a full digital campaign pro bono, my fingers flying across the keyboard with purpose. Millie arrived in a rental car the next afternoon, her designer boots sinking into the gravel as she gaped at the farmhouse. "You actually live here," she breathed as if I'd taken up residence on the moon. I let her tour the place in silence, watching her fingers trail over the reclaimed barnwood table. I'd refinished myself the thriving herb garden in the kitchen window. Over dinner, roasted vegetables from Mrs. Delaney's garden bread I'd baked that morning, she dropped the act. "Bella thinks you're punishing her." The accusation hung between us like smoke. "I'm living," I corrected, passing her the butter. "There's a difference." The second surprise came at midnight. I found Millie in the kitchen, bathed in refrigerator light, holding the community center flyer I'd left on the counter. "You designed this." The disbelief in her voice cracked something open in me. Not anger, pity. They'd reduced me to such a small, predictable role in their minds that competence shocked them. By morning, something had shifted. Millie stayed an extra day helping me winterize the garden, her manicured hands digging in the dirt with unexpected enthusiasm. As we worked, she confessed in fragments how Bella had spun my departure as abandonment, how Dylan had called me hysterical. But the more she talked, the clearer it became she wasn't here to fetch me back. She was scouting the escape route. Her rental car disappeared down the driveway at dawn on the third day, taking with it the last shred of doubt. The frost had melted, leaving the fields glittering. Inside, my laptop pinged with another client inquiry, this time from a women's cooperative in Portland. I smiled, stirring honey into my tea. The world they thought I'd fled, I hadn't left it. I'd finally found my place in it. The pruning shears in my hands didn't falter as their footsteps crunched across the gravel. I could smell Bella's perfume before I heard her voice, that same expensive citrus scent she'd worn since college, now laced with something sharper. Anxiety, maybe, or desperation. Mom. The single word hung between us like a dare. I turned slowly, wiping my hands on my worn jeans, taking in the way her designer blazer strained at the shoulders from nervous fidgeting. Millie hovered behind her like a reluctant referee. Then came the first unexpected moment. Bella's eyes darted past me to the farmhouse where the morning sun glinted off the new storm windows I'd installed myself. Her lips parted slightly at the sight of the thriving garden, the refurbished porch, swing the hand-painted sign reading, "Whitmore Digital Strategies" by the door. I saw the exact second her narrative about my hermit phase cracked. "You live here?" She said not a question, but an adjustment. "I do." I didn't offer more, letting the silence stretch until it became uncomfortable. The old me would have rushed to fill it with explanations, apologies, reassurances. The woman I'd become simply waited. The second surprise came when Millie unexpectedly broke ranks. "It's nicer than I expected," she blurted, then flushed when Bella shot her a look. But the damage was done. The unspoken acknowledgement that maybe I hadn't lost my mind after all. Bella rallied with practiced efficiency. "We're worried about you being out here alone at your age." The garden shears clicked shut in my hand with deliberate finality. "I'm not alone. I have clients coming tomorrow morning, the Delaney's bringing over their grandkids for computer help this afternoon, and Eli teaching me to split firewood on Saturday." I met her gaze squarely. "When was the last time you had plans with 3 different people in 1 week?" A car horn honked down the lane, Mrs. Delaney's ancient station wagon kicking up dust as it approached. Perfect timing. The tableau held Bella frozen mid-argument, Millie staring at her phone, like it might savor me standing firm with dirt under my nails and sun on my face. The station wagon rolled to a stop and 2 freckled faces pressed against the rear window, waving wildly. "Sorry to interrupt," Mrs. Delaney called through the open window, "but these monsters insist you promised to show them how to make those internet flyers for their lemonade stand?" I didn't miss the way Bella's jaw tightened at being upstaged by preteens. "Be right there," I called back, then turned to my daughter with the calm of a woman who'd finally stopped chasing approval. "You're welcome to stay for lunch. I made tomato soup from the garden." The offer hung between us, not an olive branch, but a test. Would she engage with me on my terms in my world for once? Bella's phone buzzed in her pocket. I watched the familiar twitch of her fingers, the Pavlovian response to corporate emails that had always taken precedence over family. For a heartbeat, I thought she might surprise me. Then she reached for her phone. Millie groaned. "Jesus, Bella." The station wagon's door slammed as the kids tumbled out their laughter, scattering the tension like birds taking flight. I handed my pruning shears to Bella, a symbolic passing of the torch she didn't understand, and walked toward the children without looking back. Let her watch. Let her see the life I'd built from scratch. Let her reckon with the truth staring her in the face. I wasn't waiting for anyone's permission to be happy anymore. The afternoon sun slanted across the porch as Bella's carefully constructed words dissolved into the space between us. I watched a ladybug crawl across the arm of my chair, its tiny legs moving with purpose, a stark contrast to the empty performance unfolding before me. Then came the moment that changed everything. Eli's truck rumbled up the driveway, kicking up dust. He bounded up the porch steps, holding a basket of fresh eggs, freezing mid-step when he saw the tense tableau. Mrs. Delaney sent these for your client meeting tomorrow." His eyes darted between my visitors and the garden shears on the table. "Should I come back later?" "No need," I said, taking the basket. "Bella Millie, this is Eli. He's been helping me restore the property." Something flickered across Bella's face as she took in his calloused hands, his easy familiarity with my home. Not jealousy, disbelief. That this teenager knew more about my daily life than she did. The second twist came when Millie suddenly stood. "Actually, Eli, could you show me that vegetable garden? Sharon mentioned her tomatoes." Bella's head snapped toward her sister. This wasn't part of the script. As Millie followed Eli down the porch steps, I caught the way her shoulders relaxed, the first genuine movement I'd seen from her all afternoon. Left alone with Bella, I let the silence stretch until it became unbearable. "You've redecorated," she finally said, fingering the edge of my laptop case, the one covered in stickers from my new clients. "I have." Her phone buzzed again. This time she didn't reach for it. A small victory. "Mom." Her voice cracked in a way I hadn't heard since she was 15. "What do you want from me?" The question hung in the air, heavy with decades of unspoken negotiations. I studied my daughter, really studied her, and saw for the first time the dark circles under her expertly concealed makeup, the way her manicured nails were bitten to the quick. "Nothing," I said quietly. "That's the point." Bella flinched like I'd struck her. The truth, it seemed, was more shocking than anger. From the garden, Millie's laughter floated up real and unguarded. Eli was showing her how to tell ripe tomatoes from green ones. The ordinary magic of connection happening without agendas or manipulations. Bella watched them through the porch, railing her carefully constructed speech forgotten. In that moment, I saw not the dismissive daughter I'd known, but a woman who'd forgotten how to be real. The ladybug took flight as I reached for the iced tea pitcher. "Stay for dinner." I offered not a surrender, but an invitation. The choice for once would be hers. The afternoon light slanted across my office wall, illuminating the certificates Bella was now scrutinizing with an unreadable expression. Google Ads certification, Facebook blueprint, the community college's digital marketing professional diploma, earned with highest honors. Then came the moment that shattered the careful détente. Bella reached out, tracing the edge of a certificate with one manicured finger. "These are real..." The disbelief in her voice made Millie gasp. "Jesus, Bella." I didn't react, just watched as my daughter's face cycled through emotions, confusion, skepticism, and finally dawning realization that these weren't participation trophies, that her mother had quietly become an expert in something she didn't understand. The second surprise came from Millie. She grabbed my elbow, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "Sharon, would you look at my LinkedIn profile sometime? HR says mine's terrible." Bella's head whipped around. "Millie!" What she's obviously good at this. Millie shot back the childhood dynamic resurfacing for a glorious moment. I bit back a smile and opened my laptop. "Let's do it now." As I pulled up Millie's profile, Bella stood frozen by the certificates, her carefully constructed narrative crumbling. The PowerPoint slides from my last client meeting were still on screen, sleek, professional, undeniably competent. "You really did all this yourself." Bella's voice was barely audible. I met her gaze over the laptop. "Who else would have..." The unspoken truth hung between us, "Not you, never you." Millie nudged me excitedly. "Change this headline to Operations Manager, Right Not Office Lady." "Exactly." I clicked through the edits. "And we'll highlight your volunteer work at the animal shelter that shows leadership." Bella watched from the doorway as her sister and I collaborated, her expression shifting from skepticism to something almost like loss. The realization that while she'd been waiting for me to come crawling back, I'd built something she couldn't dismiss. When the printer whirred to life with Millie's updated resume, Bella finally spoke. "Mom, could you—" She hesitated, then gestured weakly at my certificates. "Explain what these mean." Not an apology, not yet, but a crack in the armor. I pulled up a chair. The lesson began. The air in the office grew thick with the weight of unspoken truths. Bella's fingers twitched toward her phone, her usual escape hatch, but for once, she left it untouched in her pocket. Then came the moment that changed everything. A notification chimed on my laptop. The Austin Startups logo flashed on screen with their finalized contract. The number visible in the preview, $15,000 a month, made Millie whistle under her breath. "Is that your salary?" Bella's voice cracked on the last word. "No," I said, clicking open the document. "That's one client for 3 months' work." The math hung between us undeniable. More than Bella made as a senior marketing manager, more than Dylan's quarterly bonuses, earned from my farmhouse office in jeans and dirt-stained gardening shoes. The second surprise came when Millie burst out laughing. "Oh my God, you're getting paid more than both of us combined." Her delight was genuine, a spark of rebellion against the family's unspoken hierarchy. Bella's mouth opened, then closed. The carefully constructed narrative of my helplessness collapsed like a house of cards. I turned the screen toward them. This is what playing with computers looks like. Bella's eyes darted from the contract to my certificates to the thriving garden outside. The foundation of her worldview was cracking. That vintage motorcycle she'd romanticized its sale had paid for the coding boot camp that landed me this deal. Millie squeezed my shoulder. "I want the name of your career coach." The joke broke the tension. Even Bella managed a tight smile, though her hands shook slightly as she reached for my laptop. "Show me how this works." Not an apology, not yet. But the first real curiosity she'd shown about my life in years. As I walked them through my client dashboard, the analytics, the campaign strategies, the tangible results, something shifted in Bella's posture. The defensive hunch of her shoulders relaxed. The CEO of the Austin Startups testimonial flashed on screen. "Sharon transformed our outreach." Outside, Mrs. Delaney's grandkids arrived for their computer lesson, their laughter floating through the open window. The sounds of my new life interrupting the reckoning with my old one. Bella finally met my gaze. "You're really not coming back, are you?" The question hung in the air, stripped bare of manipulation. I closed the laptop with a soft click. "I already have." The air in the office grew thick with the weight of unspoken truths. Bella's fingers twitched toward her phone, her usual escape hatch, but for once she left it untouched in her pocket. Then came the moment that changed everything. A notification chimed on my laptop. The Austin Startups logo flashed on screen with their finalized contract. The number visible in the preview, $15,000 a month, made Millie whistle under her breath. "Is that your salary?" Bella's voice cracked on the last word. "No," I said, clicking open the document. "That's one client for 3 months' work." The math hung between us undeniable. More than Bella made as a senior marketing manager. More than Dylan's quarterly bonuses. Earned from my farmhouse office in jeans and dirt-stained gardening shoes. The second surprise came when Millie burst out laughing. "Oh my God, you're getting paid more than both of us combined." Her delight was genuine, a spark of rebellion against the family's unspoken hierarchy. Bella's mouth opened, then closed. The carefully constructed narrative of my helplessness collapsed like a house of cards. I turned the screen toward them. This is what playing with computers looks like. Bella's eyes darted from the contract to my certificates to the thriving garden outside. The foundation of her worldview was cracking. That vintage motorcycle she'd romanticized its sale had paid for the coding boot camp that landed me this deal. Millie squeezed my shoulder. "I want the name of your career coach." The joke broke the tension. Even Bella managed a tight smile, though her hands shook slightly as she reached for my laptop. "Show me how this works." Not an apology, not yet, but the first real curiosity she'd shown about my life in years. As I walked them through my client dashboard, the analytics, the campaign strategies, the tangible results, something shifted in Bella's posture. The defensive hunch of her shoulders relaxed. The CEO of the Austin startup's testimonial flashed on screen. Sharon transformed our outreach. Outside, Mrs. Delaney's grandkids arrived for their computer lesson, their laughter floating through the open window. The sounds of my new life interrupting the reckoning with my old one. Bella finally met my gaze. "You're really not coming back, are you?" The question hung in the air, stripped bare of manipulation. I closed the laptop with a soft click. "I already have." The cicadas began their evening chorus as Bella struggled to answer. The golden light caught the streaks in her carefully highlighted hair roots, showing just like her carefully constructed facade. Then came the moment that surprised us all. Millie stepped forward, her voice shaking. "She's sorry she got caught." Bella whirled on her sister. "That's not— No, let's finish this." Millie's hands trembled, but her voice didn't. "You're sorry Mom saw the truth. Sorry she stopped playing the meek little widow. Sorry her success makes your busy executive act look—" She trailed off, waving at my laptop, the contracts, the whole damn farmhouse. The air crackled with the energy of a dam breaking. For years, we'd all danced around Bella's selfishness, Dad with his patient size-me, with my endless understanding, Millie with her nervous jokes. Now the unspoken truth lay bare between us. The second revelation came from an unexpected quarter. Eli's voice floated up from the garden path. "Mrs. Whitmore, the Delaney kids are here for their coding lesson." 3 freckled faces peered around him, clutching notebooks. The youngest held up a Raspberry Pi computer like a trophy. "We fixed the LED circuit." Bella stared at them at me like she'd stumbled into some parallel universe. Maybe she had. In her world, mothers didn't teach coding, didn't rebuild farmhouses, didn't flourish after being discarded. I stood brushing imaginary dirt from my knees. "We'll continue this later. I have a class to teach." As I walked toward the kids, Bella grabbed my wrist. Her grip was too tight, her French manicure digging into my skin. "You'd rather teach strangers than talk to your own daughter." The children's eyes went wide. Eli tensed, ready to intervene. I pried her fingers loose one by one. "I'd rather build people up," I said quietly, "than keep tearing myself down for your comfort." The Delaney kids followed me to the porch, their usual chatter subdued. But as I booted up the lesson, the youngest, Maddie, leaned close. "Mrs. Whitmore, my mom says you're the bravest lady she knows." Bella, still standing frozen by the chairs, flinched like she'd been struck. The coding lesson went on around her. Lights blinked, kids cheered. And in the gathering twilight, my daughter finally saw me, really saw me, as someone who mattered beyond what I could do for her. Not with an apology, not with tears, but with silence. The kind that changes everything. The golden light had faded to dusk when I walked to the edge of the porch, gripping the railing where I'd sanded away decades of peeling paint with my own hands. The cicada's song pulsed in rhythm with my heartbeat. Then came the moment that sealed everything. Bella's phone buzzed again, 3 rapid vibrations this time. Without thinking, she swiped it open, her thumbs moving in automatic response. A harsh laugh escaped me. "Still proving my point, I see." Her head jerked up. "It's Dylan. He's wondering when you'll be home." I finished for her. "Go. Your family needs you." The words should have tasted bitter, but they didn't. Just factual, like stating that the tomatoes needed watering or the oak trees would soon lose their leaves. The second surprise came when Millie suddenly threw her arms around me, a fierce, uncharacteristic embrace that smelled of airline peanuts and Chanel No. 5. "I'll call you tomorrow," she whispered. For real this time. As they walked to the rental car, Bella turned back once. The porch light caught the tears on her cheeks, real ones finally. Not performative, not strategic, just human. "Mom, what if I waited. The crickets filled the silence. "Never mind." She climbed into the passenger seat, the interior light illuminating how small she looked suddenly. Not my tormentor. Just another flawed person who'd mistaken control for love. The Delaney kids called out goodbye from the driveway, their Raspberry Pi projects clutched like treasures. Eli gave me a knowing nod before heading home. Alone on the porch, I listened to the rental car's tires crunch down the gravel road. the scent of lavender from my garden mixed with the evening damp. Somewhere in the distance, an owl called. My phone buzzed the Austin startup confirming our kickoff meeting. Then Mrs. Delaney, "Can you teach the kids website design next week?" Followed by Millie. "Sent you a LinkedIn connection request. Also, thank you." 3 notifications. 3 threads of a life rewoven. I poured myself a bourbon, the ice cubes cracking like tiny bones. The past 4 months flashed before me, the fever, the loneliness, the terrifying leap into the unknown. From inside my laptop pinged with another email. I left it unanswered. For once, the world could wait. The fireflies began their evening dance as the last of Bella's composure disintegrated. Her designer purse slipped from her shoulder, spilling lipsticks and a corporate ID badge onto the porch boards, the trappings of a life that suddenly seemed fragile. Then came the moment that redefined us. She sank onto the steps like a marionette with cut strings. "Who are you?" The question wasn't accusatory, it was awed, terrified. I knelt beside her, close enough to smell her expensive perfume mixing with the earthy scent of my garden. "The woman you never bothered to know." Millie made a small wounded sound in her throat. The cicadas had gone quiet, as if the whole world was holding its breath. The second revelation came when Bella reached for my hand, not to manipulate, but to anchor herself. Her fingers were ice cold. What if I want to know you now?" I studied our joined hands, her perfect manicure against my gardening calluses. The truth spilled out before I could stop it. "Then you'll need to learn how to listen. Really listen. Without your phone. Without an agenda." A car door slammed down the road. The Delaney kids shouting goodbye. Normal life continuing around us while we hovered in this impossible moment. Bella's phone buzzed again on the porch floor. Dylan's name flashed. She didn't reach for it. Millie wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "I'd like to try too, if that's okay." The owl called again from the oak tree. My laptop pinged inside another client email. The farmhouse walls seemed to lean in waiting. I took a deep breath of lavender-scented air. "Start by turning off your phones." To my astonishment, they did. The screens went dark one by one like stars winking out at dawn. In that quiet, something new began, not the relationship we'd had, but the one we might yet build. Not with words, not yet, but with silence. The kind that speaks volumes. The fireflies blinked between us like tiny warning signals as Bella's words hung in the humid air. I felt the old ache rise in my chest, the one that used to send me scrambling to smooth things over. Then came the moment that set me free. I laughed. Not a bitter chuckle, but a full, rich laugh that startled an owl from the oak tree. "Oh, honey," I said, wiping my eyes. "I'm not better than anyone, just finally equal." Bella's face contorted in confusion. The script she'd prepared had no response for this. The second surprise came from Millie. She stepped between us, hands raised like a referee. "Enough, both of you." Her voice shook, but her stance was firm. "Bella, go wait in the car, now." For the first time in 40 years, Bella actually listened to her little sister. As her heels clicked down the porch steps, Millie turned to me. "She's wrong, but so are you." The moon illuminated the tears on her cheeks. "We failed you. But this..." She gestured at my laptop, the farmhouse, the whole defiant life I'd built. "It's a wall, Sharon, and you're bricking yourself in." The rental car door slammed in the distance. Crickets resumed their interrupted song. I reached for Millie's hand. "Walls have gates." She squeezed my fingers too tight, just like when we were kids, then followed Bella to the car. Alone on the porch, I watched their headlights cut through the darkness. The scent of night-blooming jasmine mixed with the tang of impending rain. My phone buzzed again, the Austin client confirming our meeting. Then an unfamiliar number. "Mrs. Delaney gave me your contact. Heard you teach tech skills to seniors." I smiled at the screen. Walls might have gates, but some fences were meant to be crossed. As the first raindrops fell, I headed inside, not to hide, but to prepare for tomorrow. The storm could rage all it wanted. My foundation was solid. The porch light flickered as I turned the laptop toward them, the screen casting eerie shadows across Bella's tear-streaked face. The cicadas had gone silent, as if nature itself was holding its breath. Then came the moment that changed everything. Page 17. I said calmly. The Henderson property, all 40 acres, goes to the community center. My consulting business assets fund a women's vocational program. I clicked to the next page. The condo sale proceeds endowed to Portland State for adult education scholarships. Bella's breath hitched when I finally landed on the relevant clause. Your trust fund from Dad still intact, but my estate. Every penny goes to organizations helping women rebuild their lives after loss. Millie made a small wounded noise. Bella's hands trembled as she reached for the screen. You can't. I already did. I closed the laptop with a quiet snap. Not to punish you, to free us both. The second revelation came when Bella's knees buckled, not in anger and grief. She collapsed onto the porch swing, its chains groaning under the sudden weight. You really don't love me anymore. The raw pain in her voice might have shattered me months ago. Now I simply sat beside her, the wood still warm from the summer heat. I'll always love you, but love shouldn't hurt this much. Millie sank down on my other side, her shoulder pressing against mine in silent solidarity. The three of us sat there, a fractured family unit, bathed in yellow porch light as the first stars appeared overhead. Bella's phone buzzed in her pocket. Dylan again. This time she didn't reach for it. I thought... Her voice was barely a whisper. I thought you'd always be there, waiting. I studied the calluses on my hands, proof of work that mattered, of a life actively lived. So did I. The owl called from the oak tree again. My laptop pinged inside another client, confirming a meeting. The ordinary sounds of my extraordinary life. Bella stood abruptly, wiping her face with the back of her hand. We should go. Millie hesitated, then squeezed my hand. I'll call tomorrow. I walked them to the rental car, watching as taillights disappeared down the dark country road. The night air smelled of rain and possibility. Back on the porch, I opened my laptop to a new email from the community center. Can you teach our fall coding class? P.S. The kids miss you. I typed my reply as the first raindrops fell. I'd be honored. The storm rolled in, but the house stood firm. And so did I. The fireflies had all gone to ground now, leaving only the steady pulse of the porch light against the gathering dark. Bella's breathing came in ragged gasps, her designer blouse damp with sweat at the collar. Then came the moment that redefined family. A pair of headlights turned down the driveway, Mrs. Delaney's battered station wagon. The back seat was crammed with sleeping kids, their faces smudged with dirt and melted popsicle. She rolled down the window, oblivious to the tension. Sharon, sorry to bother you so late, but... Her words died as she took in the scene: Bella's tear-streaked makeup, Millie's ashen face, the legal documents glowing on my laptop. The second surprise came when Bella suddenly straightened, wiping her cheeks with the backs of her hands. We're fine, ma'am, she said with startling composure. Family discussion. Mrs. Delaney's eyes met mine, a silent question. I gave a small nod. Just dropped by to say the kids raised $87 with their coding project, she said carefully. They want to donate it to whatever organization you think best. Bella flinched like she'd been struck. The women's shelter, then, I said. Tell them thank you. As the taillights disappeared down the lane, Bella turned to me with something entirely new in her expression. Not anger, not calculation, but dawning comprehension. You really have built a life here? Not just a life, I corrected softly. A legacy. Millie made a choked sound and reached for both our hands. The three of us stood there, a fractured constellation realigning under the stars, until Bella finally whispered the words that changed everything. Teach me. Not an apology, not a demand. A request. The first genuine one she'd ever made. Inside my laptop pinged with another email, the shelter confirming our meeting about the property transfer. Outside, the night hummed with possibility. I squeezed my daughter's hand. We start tomorrow. The past was settled. The future. That remained to be written. The deadbolt's click echoed through the quiet house like a period at the end of a long sentence. I stood at the window, watching the rental car's taillights dissolve into the darkness between the oak trees, those ancient witnesses to my rebirth. Then came the moment of perfect clarity. My reflection in the window glass showed a woman I barely recognized. Not the hunched, apologetic mother Bella had expected to find. Not the grieving widow who'd once begged for scraps of attention. A woman with sun-streaked hair and dirt under her nails standing straight in a kitchen she'd designed herself. The second surprise came when my phone buzzed not with another client email, but with a photo from Mrs. Delaney. Her grandkids beamed at the camera, holding a handmade sign, "Future Coders of America. Thanks, Mrs. Whitmore." The timestamp showed it had been sent hours ago, lost in the day's chaos. I traced their smudged, joyful faces on the screen. This was my family now. The kind that showed up with popsicle-stained grins and $87 raised selling lemonade. The kind that didn't need to be managed or convinced or guilted into caring. Outside, the first drops of rain began to fall, pattering against the new roof I'd helped install. The Austin contract glowed on my laptop screen. The shelter's paperwork sat signed and ready on the counter. I poured myself a glass of wine, the good Pinot Noir I used to save for holidays no one visited for, and carried it to my office. The certificates on the wall caught the lamplight, not trophies, but tombstones for the woman I'd been. The storm rolled in with thunder that shook the windows. I didn't flinch. Somewhere out there, Bella was probably crying to Dylan about her crazy mother. Millie was likely staring at a hotel ceiling, replaying every word. And I opened my calendar to tomorrow's appointments. 9 a.m. client strategy session. 12 p.m. lunch with Mrs. Delaney, 3 p.m. shelter board meeting. 6 p.m. coding class with the kids. A life. My life. Not a phase. Not a rebellion. Just home. The rain intensified, drumming a relentless rhythm on the porch roof as I turned off the lights. Tomorrow would come. And for the first time in decades, I couldn't wait to meet it. The cork came out with a satisfying pop, not the expensive Cabernet I used to save for holidays. No one attended, but a $12 Malbec from the local vineyard. Perfectly good, just like me. Then came the moment that sealed my victory. A knock at the door. Not Bella returning, the pattern was all wrong. 3 firm wraps, then 2 light ones. Eli's signature. "Forgot my wrench," he said when I opened it, rainwater dripping from his baseball cap. Then he noticed the wine glass in my hand, the open book on the counter. "You okay, Mrs. W?" The concern in his voice, real uncomplicated, nearly undid me. "Better than okay," I said, and meant it. The second surprise came when he reached into his raincoat pocket. "Almost forgot. Grandma sent this." A jar of blackberry jam, the label written in Mrs. Delaney's looping cursive, "For the bravest woman we know." I unscrewed the lid, right there the sweet tart scent bursting forth like a promise. Without thinking, I dipped a finger in and tasted it, childlike, irreverent. Eli's laughter echoed through the house. That night, I fell asleep to the rhythm of rain on the roof, the jam jar glowing like a ruby on my nightstand. The Austin contract sat signed on the desk. The shelter paperwork waited in its envelope. And in the morning, there would be coffee, and work that mattered, and a life, wholly unapologetically, mine. The storm passed before dawn. When the sun rose, it found me already awake, stretching toward the light, like the tomatoes in my garden roots deep face upturned, drinking in the day. Not an ending, a beginning, at last.